Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here. I'm excited to be talking with three of my favorite guitarists and educators, two people who I actually studied with, and then some people who I get to work with as colleagues. Some people both. But before we dive in, I just want to give you a quick introduction to who you're actually going to be listening to today, who I'll be talking with. We got Mr. Bruce Forman, who I had the privilege of studying with at USC. He's faculty down there. I got to work with him closely. He's played with people like Joe Henderson and Ray Brown. He was my mentor through my time at USC. Bruce, will you give him a wave? There's Bruce Forman. We got Adam Levy, who I also had the privilege of working with. I started studying with him. Actually, I saw him give a master class at USC, and I was like, who is that guy? I want to play some music with him. I want to know what he's doing. He's played with people like Norah Jones, Vulfpeck. He has his whole education platform called Guitar Tips. That's awesome. And I also actually started working with him as colleagues when he hired me at Los Angeles College of Music when he was the department head, and now I am. So we get to work together in that platform. And at Sonora Guitar Intensive, where I work with Horace Bray. Horace, will you give him a wave now? Adam, will you give him a wave? Because I didn't actually, that's Adam Levy. Horace Bray over here. He's a guitarist who I got to know in the last few years. He was in New York and now is in LA. He's worked with people like Arie and Jordan Fisher. I get to work with him through this wonderful online guitar platform called Sonora Guitar Intensive. And what I would like to do now is play a little guitar. Play a little guitar. I think we just had a Zoom bomber. Adam, will you kick us off? Why don't we play like a chorus with B-flat blues each so they can all hear us?
Okay.
Okay, thank you guys all for playing. So what we're gonna do here is talk a little bit about how to be motivated teachers, how to keep our students motivated. We've kind of been living in this crazy time, as we all know, the last, what are we at? I guess over a year now, where we've been living here. And so Sammy and I were talking a lot about like people who inspire us as both educators and players, and Horace, Bruce, and Adam all came up. And we're going to divide this into kind of a few different sections, which is, you know, the educators, how do we stay healthy and with our mental health? You know, we're all staring at screens. Students are not just the students that are staring at screens. Round two, kind of getting students to practice, and round three, dealing with the non-professional students. So there's a lot of different things at play. So I'd like to start off with, yeah, like I said, we're all staring at screens all the time, and I know all of us do that. I know I've struggled with some days. I'm like, I am so uninspired. My head hurts from staring at the screen. What do I do to stay like sane? And like, I need to be a stronger person for my student. Yeah, Zoom fatigue and all that stuff. Adam, what do you find that works for you with this stuff?
Yeah. Um, well, getting getting out of my teaching room as often as I can, which was really hard in the winter time. I'm in Brooklyn, and so there's some places you might live where if you have a 10-minute break, you can go outside and take a walk around the block or whatever. It gets harder to do that when it's just snowy and freezing and slippery, slidey. So the winter was the hardest time for me to deal with that because I couldn't just go outside. But normally, I try to schedule my lessons so that I do have breaks.
Mm.
Rather, some teachers will try to schedule all of their lessons in 1 day or 2 days, so they just kind of get it done. And I tried that, and I found it ultimately was just not. That would be like trying to like do all your sleeping in 2 or 3 days. I'll just do all my sleep, and then I'll stay awake for 3 or 4 days, and it's just not sustainable. So
Yeah.
pacing myself, taking breaks. Um, uh, Doing stuff that's on paper. If I have a break and I can't go outside, sometimes I'll just journal, just
Mm.
get out my notebook and write freehand for a couple of pages, or crack open a book, or just do anything I can that's in the analog world. Helps with the fatigue of screens for sure.
Actually it's funny that you say the whole breaking things up because I was that teacher the first part of quarantine of stacking everything on a day or two, and Horace is the person who I spoke with who's like, what, you're crazy, like you can't do that, like I don't teach for more than a couple hours in a row. And I was like, oh, yeah, that this makes more sense for me.
Right, because we've all sat with a teacher who's fried, or been to see a doctor or therapist or whatever who is fried, and it's not. You shouldn't. Your first two students of the day shouldn't be the ones who are getting the best of you. Everybody should get the best of you, and that might mean, yeah, really putting a cap on how many students you can see in a day.
Yeah, totally. um so obviously we've had to shift in this virtual world. I don't know if this speaks to you guys, but I feel like it's been two-sided. Where on one side, I think I've actually become kind of a stronger educator because I can't rely on the things that I always do. I've had to be a more creative educator. Remember, Bruce is actually someone who said this to me, like creativity comes with from limitations. And within this limitations, like this, you have to figure out how to get around new barriers. Yeah, like Bruce, for you, I got, a lot of time to study with you, and you're such a creative educator. What things have worked for you in the virtual world?
Well, I find that a lot of things are better. So I generally lean towards those things to start off with, and then try and build on strength. Something we always thought when we went into this paradigm of we can't play together, and this music is about playing together. So we're kind of like, how is this going to work? And I'm finding that playing together was always great, and it's still the best, but there's a lot of things that you don't hear in your students, or that they don't get from you, because like we'll be playing, and I have only will have one rule in all my lessons, which is if I play something that the student's interested in, wants me to show them or explain to them, they stop me right when I do it. They don't wait till the end of a solo and say, oh, back in the second A of the first chorus, you did this. So the rule is stop me right then. This isn't a gig. We don't have those kind of, protocol that we have to follow. And I was finding that a lot of times that wasn't happening in live lessons because the kids were so busy comping for me that they weren't listening to.
Mm.
And not as intently as they are now. They have to only listen to me because they aren't playing. And then another thing is, like I'm a fairly strong player. I'm kind of a bull in a china shop, and I put really strong time out, and a lot of students would ride on me. And then when I hear them play by themselves, I realized that, oh, wow, they were kind of like in a piggyback situation. You know, I was mistaken exactly how strong their time feel was or something. So these things like playing solo and explaining things in better detail and just demonstrating things without, you know, somebody trying to play their guitar at the same time that they're working on it. Those are things that I think are stronger online. And so I definitely lean in that direction as the place to be the portal to get to the next thing we got to get to. It's funny for me. I mean, yes, the screen is very fatiguing. I will not, you know, of course, and that says without going, but I am just so enthusiastic about music. I'm just like, I'm the guy that probably would like to go to prisons because that way I could practice 16 hours a day without anybody bugging me. I mean, so like, I love to just play and get into it. You know, I mean, to me, this is just an endless source of inspiration and excitement for me. So I'm really enjoying this as I am, you know, as you know, the community aspect of music is a really big part of it to me. And so at least when we're online, we're hanging out together. You know, I mean, I know it's not as good as playing a gig or being at a bar or going to a concert, but it's a hell of a lot better than it would have been 20 years ago had this happened.
Yeah.
And I'm grateful for that.
Yeah. Yeah. I know. And I definitely want to talk later about like when I go to your house, you know, for lessons and whatnot, and seeing that you're still working and you're still practicing was so informative for me, which is something, you know, I think we try to translate to students too, where it's like, you know, in order to be inspiring our students, we have to be inspired players and inspired educators.
Exactly.
Horace, I have a question because like you are so much better with technology than I am, and I think all of us have been hunting for like some sort of thing that can help with tech. Like, is there anything or like that stands out to you that's been helpful during this time, or like things that you've been able to utilize that have made your lessons and your like working with groups more effective? Because I know you've done a lot of master classes as well too.
Yeah, master classes I feel like a little less comfortable with because it's still somehow you still get a little bit of stage fright with them because it's like you see like, oh, there's 50 people in this thing, or like I can see there's 19 people here, and I'm like, okay, don't sound silly. But probably on the first thing that you brought up about like using technology, the thing that's been surprisingly beneficial is recording the video of your lessons for the students, because in all of my in-person lessons, like no one, like there would be like maybe one person in a blue moon that would like bring a proper video recorder if they were really, really stoked on it. But a lot of people, especially more beginners who weren't necessarily as serious about it, but were serious enough to, you know, put in some work, they would never like have any video content. So that's what's been really cool, is that I can, you know, come up with like a little 8-bar etude or something and record it for them, and then they'll have that. And then like the sending videos back and forth, like we do in Sonora, and like I do it in my just private lessons as well. That's ended up being really beneficial, which of course I really miss, you know, just playing a couple choruses with someone, because I feel like that's very revealing. And there's a certain part of like the mind game of improvisational music that you don't get to really touch on as much. Because I feel like the most important lessons that I had growing up were like the ones that taught me how to not get in my own way. And because it's like you have the people that'll like mess up and they'll be like, and they'll like visually, you can see them mess up. And it's like that completely like ruined their chances of recovery. So that's the part I miss the most. But like the documenting, I think, is really, really nice. And I think, you know, it's actually almost a little easier to get people out of their shells digitally, I've found, because it's like they feel like less pressure. They're not like in the same room as you. It usually will take like a minute or two, but then they seem pretty comfortable.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, you brought up a lot of good points. Yeah, how about, Bruce or Adam, have you guys found, and I'm thinking more like these group settings as well. I know there's some high school educators logged on here too. In a classroom setting, I know for me, like when I'm teaching some of these like classes, I'm looking at 12 kids and they'll be like that one kid who's just like not having it. I mean, like, this is hard emotionally for everyone. And then on top of that, to be a student and be so isolated. Like, have any of you guys, this is actually, if anyone has like something that they found to be helpful to get these students more engaged, especially when there's like that one, and that one sucks up the energy of the whole room. Kind of like when you're on a bandstand and there's one person who doesn't want to be there, and then suddenly like you're like, this gig sucks. What's going on? I was having fun 5 minutes ago.
I don't know, Bruce. Do you want to field that?
Well, I mean, I just come from the place of like, I'm really excited about this. So, and I'm gonna have a good time, and I'm not gonna let that skunk on the bandstand or the skunk in the class ruin it for me or anybody else, everybody else. And so I just power through, you know, and if I have the opportunity to address that person personally, privately, like, you know, if I notice like in a group, there's somebody like that. This generally doesn't happen for me in online stuff. It hasn't yet, but it has been, you know, back in the days when we were doing it in person. And I will, like, at the end, walk over to the kid privately and say, "Is everything okay? Are you okay?" You know, and usually it's like something unrelated to what is happening, or it shocks them that you noticed or you care, and it creates an actual change. A connection has been made. And, you know, not all of us are going to want to do this. A lot of kids are in a class just because they think it's the cool thing to do, but they really don't want to be there. And, you know, that's their problem. That's the thing. You know, for me, as you know, I'm also cracking jokes all the time and having a good time. So at least I figure if they're not getting any music out of it, they're getting entertainment, you know.
Yeah. And actually, you bring up a good point. That is something that I would definitely want to address, is like, I know all of us are professional musicians. We love what we do. We take the thing seriously. We're passionate educators and musicians. And when we are working with students that are just kind of like doing it because it's the class they signed up for, their parents told them they had to learn trumpet, whatever, they're trying to get out of PE or like any of those things. I'm curious. Yeah, maybe we could get a couple perspectives on this. That would be cool. Just of like things. What do you? Yeah, like what are how do you deal with a kid who only half wants to be there when like you want to be you? Yeah, how do you navigate that situation? Adam or Horace, do you guys want to? One of you guys want to take that?
Horace?
I feel like I was kind of that kid in high school. But like, because I'm thinking back, it's like there were definitely times when it was like, you know, Bruce, I thought you brought up a good point where it's not usually about being there. It's usually about like some home life thing or something with their friends or like just general anxiety or insecurity. And I remember my band director in high school, like really, he did a great job at like like saying that he noticed it in private, but also gave me a lot of opportunities to succeed and didn't just write me off as the kid that like, oh, he doesn't want to be here, therefore that. He would like throw a solo at me last second on the new tune that we were reading. And I think the thing that I needed was someone to just like blindly have confidence in me, which was, you know, maybe something that I didn't have as much during that time. But I feel like it's such like a case by case thing.
Yeah. Yeah, it is case by case thing, but like the thing that you said of you know, teacher throwing a solo at you. In some classes, it's not an appropriate thing to do, or in a Zoom session, it may not be a technologically possible thing to do. But yeah, anytime you can give somebody an opportunity to actually engage with whatever the thing is that you're talking about, yeah, it can just kind of snap them out of, as all of you have said, yeah, half the time it may not be that they're bummed out about the class at all. They really, that might be the face that they have on or the body language, but when you actually break through that, it's totally possible that their dog died that morning or some other thing happen that's completely unrelated. But and anytime you can actually like put the ball in their hands and say, hey, can you do this thing, that's going to be that's going to be effective more often than not. Again, with Zoom, you can't always do that. But I sometimes do master classes on Crowdcast, just because then you actually can bring somebody on screen if they're okay with it, and have them play something, or just be a little more in the conversation. And maybe that's what they're bummed out about, is they feel like they're kind of on the outside looking in. And if there's some way to bring them in, that may just be a move in the right direction.
Yeah, I think that's such a good point of like me, because now what I'm kind of curious about your thoughts on is like bringing in students who struggle in the virtual world. So I'm thinking of back, I feel like there's these waves where like as an entire country or world will have like this month where it just feels heavy and dark. And then there's, hey, like things are okay. We're kind of getting in the groove. And I feel like it's been a collective with these sort of ups and downs. And maybe the same answers are like how we kind of help ourselves is how we can help others who are struggling in the virtual world. Like Adam brought up, like going on a walk. Like actually that's what I did an hour ago. I was like, I finished like a few hours of like this and talking and teaching. And I was like, I can't, I need to step outside in order to be a better everything. But when you see that student who's like clearly like this platform doesn't work for them as well, I'm curious about how you guys think we kind of engage with them. I sometimes feel like a cheerleader or something when I'm here. I'm just like, hey guys, isn't this great? Don't we love it? And it's just like, you know, and you just are giving so much in order to try to get a little bit from students. Yeah. And that's what I try to do. And maybe I'm depleting myself, and maybe the students think I'm being ridiculous, but like that balance. Yeah. Bruce?
That's interesting. You know, I mean, it all depends, you know, I mean, of course, on the age group. I mean, to me, the thing that, you know, I can tell with why you are all such great teachers, and one of the things I think it's a hallmark of a great teacher, is just a lot of empathy, empathetic nature, you know, a person that can, you know, we, of course, are all very serious about our music and have, you know, love it and are enthusiastic about it and work hard on it. But we, in order to see past ourselves and see what might be blocking that person from achieving what they want to achieve, not what we want, but what they want. And to really, you know, sometimes, like I say, with my students, we don't even play. We just talk about stuff. And I was lucky. I had a student at a festival once, and workshops I was doing. And she came up to me and she said, you know, she says, I'm a therapist. You know, she really enjoyed the music thing. She says, I'm a therapist. I work with people all the time. She says, I think you could really do my job. And when she said that, she didn't realize it, but in a way, she freed up my guitar teaching, because so many times from charging X amount of money, I always felt like I got to give them 5 pounds of licks for their $100 or whatever, you know what I mean? And it was like there was an equation that I felt this pressure the whole time during the lesson that we had to achieve these musical goals in order to make this a good lesson. And this woman sort of freed me from that, going like, you know, if I just help these people get to the next place, you know, and a little bit more enthusiastic, a little bit more aware of what's getting in their own way. You know, what's going on inside their own head that might be keeping them from achieving what they want to achieve. That's a hell of a lot better than their 5 pounds of licks on this lesson. Yeah. And it enabled me to kind of relax and sort of try and, you know, suss out what's going on, and therefore try creative ways of unlocking the things that need to be unlocked, and to give the guidance that the person really wants from you, you know. And in some cases, I've noticed, I'm sure all you guys have had these lessons where you get into the lesson and you realize at some point that this isn't a guitar lesson. This is just a hang. People are actually just giving you money because they want to hang out and they want to talk and they want to talk through some things. Yeah. It's not, and like for us to like be open to that and aware, and have the empathy to feel that that's the right thing to do at that moment, because really you just want to set them up for success, whatever that means to them.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Bruce. Adam, did you have something you wanted to add on?
Well, just something that I've found helpful a little bit in this past year as we're all Zooming, that I did for not necessarily for this reason, but ended up being helpful in this way, is I took some lessons. You know, there were some teachers that I wanted to study with, and the only way to study with anybody right now is on Zoom or something like that. And it helped me appreciate. I did it because there were things I wanted to learn, but it also helped me appreciate, what it's like on the other side of that screen for the student who's, spending the time with you and trying to learn something. So I would encourage other teachers to do that. If there's somebody that you want to hang with or study with or whatever, that besides learning something, you're also going to get to walk a mile in your students' shoes, and so maybe when you see what kind of day they're having or what kind of face they're presenting or whatever, you'll have a sense of what that's like to be there too.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. I see someone here. We got a question in the chat from Alex. What is beyond our scope of care as private educators? If a student is struggling in their personal life, should we offer help, or do we stay more in the lane of music?
That's tricky.
Yeah. Do you have a thought, Horace? I can add on after. Yeah.
Because you definitely I feel like you have to go into it respecting that boundary. Unless they invite you in to that realm, you can't push. Like Bruce was saying, it's like sometimes guitar lessons really, it's very crossover with therapy. It's very crossover with just like kind of just talking about life. And I think that's maybe even more important than any of the other aspects of guitar lessons, especially when someone's in slightly more intermediate or advanced, because it's like they've been practicing their scales, but then it's like, why aren't they getting to that next place? Because I've definitely had some heavier conversations with students before. I try to keep it conceptual. Don't talk about specific, if they're upset with their family, don't talk about their family, but keep it very conceptual, and don't pry too much. While I try to give my own personal experiences I think might be relevant. But you have to be really, really mindful of what are they doing with their eyes? Because you can usually see when someone it's too much, they disassociate and they're just sitting there and you're just talking at them. And that's the point where it's not cool, So you just have to be while you're talking, you have to be the best listener of their body language that you can be.
Yeah. I know. I don't know if this speaks to you guys, but it is this strange boundary of guitar is, if not half, lessons are very much therapy, and I think I can speak to this on having been on both ends, where sometimes I'd show up with Bruce and we would just go walk, and talk, or sit there with the guitar, and I just that was more important in the moment. But I find sometimes with my students, there is this funny thing with boundaries too, where you want to be supportive and you want to be there for them, and it is a safe space. But sometimes creating a healthy boundary can be a funny thing, where sometimes you're you have to keep a certain level, especially I think in a school setting, teaching at a college or a high school or an elementary school, whatever. It's sometimes it's maybe you shouldn't be telling me this, or maybe you need to actually seek out, talk with a counselor, or you shouldn't be texting me at midnight, or these sort of funny boundaries that exist as music educators, because, in music, we're all peers. It's not we're all peers ultimately.
Yeah, exactly. It's there are rules with everywhere. Obviously the school has particular rules about that. You have to go train, you have to do training, and I'm assuming that this person might be a high school educator, or something, or middle school. And if that's the case, yeah, I mean, you're kind of handcuffed in certain ways because of the rules you agreed to going in. So that's what it is. But you also have a responsibility. I mean, if you're seeing somebody who's appears to be beaten or is being mistreated, you need to be empathetic enough to realize that's happening and to at least advocate on their behalf by telling a counselor, or suggesting they go see a counselor, or whatever, because sometimes these people are powerless to fix their situation. And because of the intimacy of what we do, we get a glimpse into something that because once we know what it is, we are responsible. As soon as the knowledge comes across our threshold, we own it.
Yeah.
And then and as much as we'd love to think that there's a rule book for this, like I take those courses at USC, every other year, you still got to kind of play it by ear.
Yeah.
And it's a rough thing. I mean, definitely, I believe I've never pried, but I do ask questions because I think it's important to know what's getting in the way here.
Yeah.
I mean, because ultimately my responsibility as a musician, as a mentor, as a friend, as a teacher, as a human being, I have all those responsibilities. They never leave.
Yeah.
And I really feel it for somebody is in a more institutional setting, like a band class, or and what you observe in elementary school or middle school, with people who are a lot more powerless than like university students and adults.
Yeah.
And I have nothing but just huge admiration for people who are willing to take on that responsibility.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's that empathy element that you brought up earlier too.
Yeah.
Being able to navigate the situations. We have another question from Oz, and which is an interesting one, that actually something that kind of I dealt with even today. How do you deal with a student who wants to become a professional musician but doesn't realize how much work they need to do to get there? Meaning that they are not there musically yet. How do you relate or explain the workload or different expectations when you're a hobbyist and when you're doing this professionally? Yeah. Like I had a student today who was talking to me. It's like, oh yeah, I could do that. And you and me, I was like, how do I tell this student? Like, you don't want to burst their bubble. Be like, do you hear what I hear? Because that's like not, the job is to be supportive and to help them get there and to be encouraging, but also with that, like, maybe it's a little salt or whatever, but that like little layer of realism. Yeah. Adam, do you have a thought on that?
Oof. I think you should be as honest with them as you can. It is not the easiest thing for me to do. I don't want to be the bubble burster if I can help it, but even when we think of pretty low bar gigs for us, meaning like something like, oh, my friend is a singer-songwriter and they have a show next week and I've got to learn 10 songs and you can't have charts on stage. So I've got to memorize the songs. I've got to get the tones together. I've got to be able to play these parts and not just be in my little bubble, but actually be really present and engage with the band and the audience and like do all that stuff. If you have a student that thinks they want to be professional, which to them probably means a lot bigger stages than what I'm talking about. I'm talking about just like, an 8 o'clock Tuesday gig at the Hotel Cafe, or just something that for any of us would be, pretty basic kind of low threshold gig. And you think they can't do that, then I think, I don't know. I mean, one thought is you could challenge them to do that. Like, here's 10 songs. You have a week to learn them. Show up next week, be able to play these 10 songs. Or, I'm going to randomly pick 3 of them and you have to play them. No charts, use a pedal board, make the tones. If it's not that, if they're not looking to do that kind of thing, if they're trying to learn, jazz or some other thing, you can think of something that's like that. But really push them to like, hey, this is what working is like. It's not just what you see on social media or what you see in movies or whatever. I think the more, because we don't really have apprenticeships these days. Apprenticeships was something almost just seems like a bygone thing. No, I mean, I'm not even talking about the COVID situation or whatever, but just this era in general, where teachers would bring students to a session or out, to hang out backstage and like see what the work really is. I think the more real you can make it for them, the better. It's not about getting any joy from bursting a bubble, but hopefully they'll rise to it and be like, oh, that's what it is. Cool. Yeah. I'm ready. Let's do that. But if they think it's anything less than the hard work that it takes to get there, then you're not doing them a favor by trying to protect them from that.
Yeah, I think that's such a good answer of like, it's not discouraging. It's like, well, here you go. This is what a gig would look like, or this is what that thing you want to do looks like. I'll see you next week. I'll tell you if you get the gig or not. I'll tell you if you're coming back for a second show.
Exactly.
Or
exactly.
No, you don't,
Yeah.
I know.
Then they'll find the places where they hit the walls. Oh, I can technically play, but I can't memorize tunes. Or I can memorize tunes, but I have technical struggles here. Or I heard a sound on this record, but I have no idea how to use the pedal board or whatever to get my guitar to sound like that. Like the places where they're gonna hit a wall will become apparent very quickly, rather than just being off, in the distance somewhere.
Yeah, totally. Okay, well, and side note for everyone listening, please feel free to throw questions in the chat. These have been such great questions.
Yeah, I mean, I just, Adam's answer is so right on. I mean, when we say supportive, we don't mean giving people false hopes or by lying to them. Yeah. To me, I do not see those things as the same thing. Supportive is, helping them learn. And a lot of helping them learn is being honest about what's not happening. And definitely in the professional situation, you just got to realize that, I mean, if this person hasn't been to a jam session with whether it's jazz or an open mic, whether it's singer-songwriter or whatever, then they don't even know what they're going, because basically you're going to play your worst then. You're not going to play your best then.
Yeah.
So if you need to play your best to make the gig, you're not ready.
Yeah.
You need to be able to make the gig when you play your worst. And, and that's what you tell them. That's being supportive. I mean, we all know you go to a jam session, and I'm talking about a jazz jam, obviously, or a blues jam. And like, you're plugging into somebody's amp. They're not going to give you time to tune up. They're gonna probably call the tune before you're even asked if you know it. And they're going to vibe you. They're all going to act like, they want you to sound, they're going to act like, almost like, I think maybe they even do want you to sound bad. Okay, are you ready for that? Well, that is just your entry into the world of it. I mean, I hate to say it, it's really stupid when you think about it, but those experiences of my life helped shape me as to who I am. I mean, if I didn't have them, I know I wouldn't be who I am.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's being supportive. That's not, being honest is being supportive. It's, actually by lying to them and coddling them is not being supportive. That's setting them up for a failure.
Yeah. I completely agree. Yeah. Jamie, like to further at this point, said in the chat, that's a great idea. I think it's always better not to tell people what they can't do, but rather be honest with them about what is actually required to do what they want to do. Goals can push and open up creativity, whereas realism can crush motivation. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So we're going to do one more question, and maybe we can even do like short bits from each of you guys, because one of the reasons why I wanted you, Sammy and I wanted you guys here, is because I know all of you guys practice. You know, you guys are all it's, and I like the lifelong learner. That's what I kind of think of as you guys. When I think of you guys, it's just like, oh yeah, like there's no end. It's just there's so much to learn and so much to so much. Yeah, it's endless. So how do you guys relay that to your students? Like, you guys all have great practice relationships to practice, which is so impressive. So yeah, if you have just like a quick thought to close out before Sammy comes on about like how you get your students to do the thing that you guys are doing, which is still being practiced and inspired.
I mean, I think for me, I was literally in the situation that Bruce was talking about last night. I went to a session and they called Humpty Dumpty before I was asked if I knew Humpty Dumpty, which is a bit of a bear of a tune if you haven't played it in a while. And that's exactly what I'm working on today. It was fine, but you know, it's like life will show you what you need to practice next. And it's like, I don't know, it's been interesting because when you go from like being like a high schooler that like you can practice like 6 hours a day, and it's like you're just like going on like all these jazz guitar blogs or like going on Instagram or YouTube. There are all these things. It's like, oh, you should learn Autumn Leaves and learn a chord melody. There's all these more like basic pedagogical stuff that like you should learn. But then when you kind of cross over to the professional world, you have to figure out how to practice while working it into the stuff that's also relevant for what you have to work on. Whether that's like, you know, playing a 4-chord song and realizing like, oh, how can I dial this in as much as I can? Or, you know, really trying to write a cool solo for that 8-bar solo that you know you're gonna have to do on a pop gig. Yeah, it's definitely interesting, especially when you're teaching a lot, because it's easy, like, you know, you talk about drop 2 voicings all morning in 3 different lessons and you feel like you don't need to work on them anymore. So it's, which is not the case. So yeah, it's interesting. That's basically how I've found to be able to like spice it up, is to try to take a lot of these fundamentals that I like tell people to work on all the time and really trying to integrate them into like the things I'm working on, whether it's like my own composition or learning someone else's music, and just try to, you know, because I tricked myself into thinking that it's more fun.
Yeah.
Not that playing a bunch of triads isn't fun, but but like finding like other ways to kind of work it into my normal day to day.
Yeah. Adam?
Well, I'm always getting excited about just doing little projects. You know, maybe I'll find an album that's that I fall in love with, and so I'll transcribe all the tunes from the album. I'm more of a tune transcriber than a solo transcriber. So when I do that, I'll share that with some of my students who I think might appreciate it. Or if I'm working on something in the practice room, I try to make a PDF about it. Just to share with them that I'm always working on new stuff, and you know, they don't always have to work on the same stuff I'm working on, but yeah, I try not to just say, oh yeah, I practice a lot. Okay, great, let's talk about something else. But try to share with them like what I'm up to, especially if it's something that I think they could have fun with. Either like, oh, here's a Horace Silver tune that I just made a cool chart of, instead of just tearing it out of the real book. Like, here's a chart that I made, and I put the voicings in, or I wrote fingerings out for some bebop line that's not originally played by a guitar player, or just any kind of little extra thing that I do for my own kind of nerdy practice that I think one of my students or a handful of my students might appreciate. And I say, yeah, I just did this week, or I just did this morning right before our lesson, or whatever. I hope that comes across as like that I love music and I'm excited about it, and I hope that they are too.
Yeah. Bruce?
Kind of the same as Adam. You know, I mean, I'm very willing to share what I'm going through with people. You know, I'm obviously very enthusiastic about music. Obviously, when you play with me or hear me play, you hear me going for things. not what you call a careful player, kind of a steamroller. And so there's all those elements, of it that I am inspired, I live that, and I'm inspired when I hear them.
Yeah.
In general, there's the occasional ones that are just, kind of lost and need more care. But in general, most people are really sounding good, in some ways, and it's exciting, and
Yeah.
and so and and I'm pretty sure they're all aware how hard I'm working. I really think this whole pandemic has been good in a lot of ways. As much as Horace kind of mentioned, until last March, I didn't realize that so much of my shedding was like gig or competitive practice. Like I have a record date coming. I'm playing a gig with this band, and I want to learn all these tunes. So much of that was based around situational, need to know and preparing myself. And then the competitive side was like, well, hey, there's me and there's like 3 or 4 other people that pretty much go for these gigs all the time. And I need to stay up with everybody. If all of a sudden everybody's playing in 7, I got to get my 7 playing together. If everybody's all of a sudden playing these new modes or whatever, I've got to like kind of make sure I'm up on it so that I don't, get out of the ranking of being called in that elite group. And then pandemic happened, boom, no gigs, no, nothing to practice for. And I just went back to being a high schooler and just playing what I love to play. The only reason to practice it was because it was something I had to know. I had to be able to do. And I always had the idea that guitar could do this, that I could do this on the guitar. And, these things that I came up with, that just pushed the envelope because, this situation presented itself. I know, what a wonderful thing. At my age, to like finally say, no, now all you're shedding is about just doing what you want to do. You don't have to do it for a gig. You don't have to worry about the record dates. You don't have to worry about competing with your fellow peers.
Yeah.
Just follow the sound. Find the sound. And I think that the people who really love music are going to emerge from this time really so much better and so much stronger and so much more singularly artistic because they're themselves and not as formed by the commercial or professional needs structures. And so, this thing is like, hey, we got fed, I'm a jazz musician. I play the changes basically. So it's like, come March, we got a set of changes that no one had ever seen before. No one had ever heard before. And I could have sat around complaining saying I don't like them. But when I get to the bandstand, I don't do that. When I get to the bandstand, I play them and I figure out a way to make it work. And so that's kind of the same attitude I've had through this whole transition to online, or just practicing a lot by myself or playing solo, because that's what I do all the time. I was always a band player and accompanist kind of guy too, my whole career, even though I was transitioning towards solo right before this happened, with some projects that were solo, is what I mean. And now, boom, I am a solo guitarist. That's it. I play by myself all the time. I'm not going to imagine I've got 4 people playing with me and play that little bit. I'm going to play everything I want to hear because I'm alone. And when gigs start happening, I will leave room for other people. I hope I won't become one of those human typewriters. You know what I mean? But I think we all, we need to really embrace where we are and be creative within it. I think that's the real jazz of life. Yeah. And the amazing and the beautiful thing is everything is always changing. So that's an inspiring place to be if you have that, if you can really, subscribe to that mindset.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, so we do have to close out. I see Oz has a question, and Oz, I believe Sam, I would actually like to bring up Sammy, and he Maybe Sam will answer that question or tell you when other people can answer that question.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, Bruce, Adam, and Horace. That was so great.
Thank you everyone so much for coming here today. Big round of applause. You can make some noise from home for these 4 incredible educators, Bruce Forman, Adam Levy, Horace Bray, and my sister Molly Miller, Dr. Molly. Before we go, I just want to share a little bit for those of you that don't know. We are here. This is the first of our Playbook Presents webinars. Playbook is a e-learning platform for music students and a tool for teachers here. And basically, it's a fully customizable music play along. And excuse me, the reason I built it is, it's funny, Bruce was talking about being a high school student and practicing. When I was in high school, all I did was sit in my room and practice and play along with records. I didn't realize that I was actually getting better at drums. I just liked doing that. I like that more than hanging out with people. So I'd find records where the drums were panned one certain way, and all of a sudden I'm playing with Miles Davis. So I was thinking, what would happen if you exploded that concept for all instruments? And I'll just show everyone here a little bit for those of you that don't know what Playbook is. So we take here like a big band chart, like here's our version of You Are My Sunshine. And you can see here, we got a full big band conductor, we got our 5 saxophones, 4 trumpets, 3 trombones, guitar, piano, bass, drums. And if we go into the chart, you'll see how we can fully customize the play along like this.
Second time at
Drummer sounds good. Or the drums and the bass. And or how about everything? The basic structure of Playbook. For every song, students can download the tracks to play along with. They can find their parts below here. Let's say I play alto saxophone, I just grab it. Boom. Now I have my part, I can practice along. For every song, the solo changes for folks who want to practice. They get their clef to practice these solo parts in, the solo sections. Every song has a history lesson for students and teachers because we're learning more than just the notes. We're trying to learn some of the cultural context. So in this case, we're talking about how jazz music was dance music at one time. It should still be. And as it was coming up as part of the social ballroom dance craze in New York City, Fletcher Henderson started a band. He moved from moved from the South up to New York City. He starts a band. They hire a trumpet player from New Orleans who has a bad haircut. All the cool New Yorkers make fun of him while they're making fun of Louis Armstrong. So Riley Mulherker is going to talk to us about that history.
He was born in 1897, born in Georgia. And what does that tell us? Well, he was a couple years older than Duke Ellington, a few years older than Louis Armstrong, but same generation as some of our other heroes.
So he'll get into that. And this is my favorite part of what we've built out, which is for every song, there's instrument-specific master classes from of how to work on that song from each instrument, right? So Grace, who's playing alto on the track, is then going to talk to our alto players and say,
"Hey everybody, Grace Kelly here. I have a tip for my lead alto players in the house. I want you to exaggerate your articulation and your dynamics. So, in measure 25 of You Are My Sunshine, you'll see there were some carrot heads, right? So I would play that little measure like, giving it some oomph under each note. If I played it kind of sleepy and without exaggerating, it might sound like, so you want..."
We'll get into that. Or let's see what Corbin's talking to our bass players about.
But You Are My Sunshine. You heard this song in kindergarten, right? But this arrangement is not your kindergarten teacher's arrangement. I think that this has got a lot of funky stuff in there, and upright bass is perfect for funky stuff. Electric bass players should check this out too. You probably have more electric bass references for how to play funky stuff. And I'm going to talk to the upright bass players about a couple records that mean a lot to me, people playing funky stuff on the upright bass. What do I mean by funky stuff? Because I think this is funky too. But I'm talking about little subdivisions, some syncopated things, maybe playing a bass line over and over and over. That doesn't happen as often in straight ahead jazz.
Or maybe we'll see what Molly, since this is such a guitar-focused day, Molly, what you talk to the guitar players about.
If you're here, I'm guessing you play guitar, something I love to do very much. I want to talk about two things today. So, first of all, the solo. We get a guitar feature, which is always exciting, and then also some voicings. So, whenever I'm playing a song, and especially taking a solo, but not even especially, I always like to think about what the character is, because that's a big part of kind of how I conceptualize playing. Like, what's the character of the song? What's my character? What's my role?
And we'll get into that more. So just so folks, that's Playbook. I'm going to put in the chat here for those of you that don't know. If you're interested in trying it out with your school, you can write me at Sammy at thisisplaybook.com, or visit the website thisisplaybook.com. I want to thank everyone so much for joining us on our first webinar series. We hope to do very many more and continue to bring in amazing guests like Adam Levy, Bruce Forman, Horace Bray, and maybe I can even get my sister to come back again. Everyone have a wonderful Monday. Have a wonderful Monday night. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Sammy.
Good night.
Thank you so much.